Welcome to the new season of the Live Your Spa Life show. The Spa in Spa Life stands for Seek Power Always, that divine power within you to do what you're here to do. The theme for this season is Freedom Fighter. Amazing people like you share ways to ensure your freedom physically, financially, spiritually, and in your relationships to create a world-class life. In these times of uncertainty, it's time for you to move past the distractions and start trusting yourself more through your God-given knowingness. No one truly knows better what's best for you than you. In this season, you'll have plenty of examples of people choosing their best life and giving a voice of freedom to those who are also looking to have their best life. Thank you for sharing your precious time with us and being part of the Live Your Spa Life conversation. With us today is Michelle Lee Myrter. She is a business coach and an international professional speaker who teaches people how to build stronger, more meaningful relationships using the B.A.N.K program. And even though she had 28 years of experience in sales and marketing for a multimillion-dollar company, she lost her job. And after losing everything, that's when everything changed. So, Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, let's just jump in with, people will see like your success and your years of experience and all the things that happen in that. And if we've learned anything in the last couple of years, that challenges pop up. And so we like to share what are some of these disempowering things that happen. And for you, losing your job, talk a little bit about that. And this had a major impact in your life, in having to sell everything. I mean, let's jump in and talk about what that process was like.
Well, everybody has their challenges in life. And I had one challenge after another, from growing up in a very narcissistic family to having bad relationships to having a divorce shortly before I lost my job. There was lots of things that happened. And you have to, as devastating as things are in that moment, you have to be able to learn from it and get back up and keep fighting. It doesn't matter how many times you fail. People fail every day. Every day I mess something up or do something wrong, but it's just getting back up and having to, get back in the ring. I had two small kids. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I just kept pushing forward because I had to. There was no other option.
Mm. So looking back now on that, and I completely relate to you. I remember I had gone through a divorce and I had two small, my small daughters when I was in the police department and working night shifts and trying to just like make ends meet to make these things happen. When you look at that path, I always look at these things happen for us, right? And that no matter what comes in front of us, this is how we build our experience. This is how we're able to turn around and help people because of the things that we've learned along our path that are completely unique to us. That is the reason why people come to us for those kind of things. As you look through all the different challenges that you've gone through, what is something that stands out that, was challenging in the moment, but when you look back now, you're like, I needed that piece because it taught me something?
Oh, wow. When you get to that point, when you break through those challenges, yeah, sure, there's challenges every day, but you can look back and connect the dots. And it was multiple things. It was different people who came in and out of my life. It was conversations. I couldn't pin it to just one specific because it was a whole journey. And at the time, like I said, you don't realize what's happening. But when you get to like one point, you look back and you go, oh my gosh, that one conversation or that one person changed my life. One of the people who changed my life was, I I built a food company when I had nothing, like built it with credit cards. That was the industry that it was in, and all I thought I could do. And I ended up getting in direct sales by accident. And the person that was my upline, she changed my life dramatically because she believed in me more than I believed in myself. And at the time, that's what I needed.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. It's interesting. when I hear about like direct sales and multi-level marketing, and I know a lot of those things like change over time, but one of the things I remember hearing a mentor talk about was that those companies are disguised as personal growth companies because they focus on your mindset and about being positive and about really looking at things in a lot of different ways. And I remember, hearing things from like Les Brown and Tony Robbins and early on where the things that we think about, right, that we bring about, those are such important things that no matter what our journey is, when we start noticing that we are having thoughts or spiraling out, and I always like to talk about your mind is a bad neighborhood, right? That, don't go in there alone. Like make sure you have the support and the things that you are feeding your mind so you have that positivity. What are some of the things either back then or today that you feed your mind that allows you to be more positive and really expand yourself?
Oh, and I love that you said that because that's what it was. Back then, I didn't even know what personal development was.
Right.
Like if somebody would said, "Oh, you should do some personal development," I'd be like, "Oh, what do you mean?" Like
How much
I'm
do I
good.
get paid for that?
Right, right. And so, like, I mean, I meditate every morning. I work out. I fuel my four selves every single day to make sure that I'm growing, I'm learning, I'm improving because I want to be better than I was every single day. I'm better than I was yesterday.
Right, right. And how much does faith come into that for you?
I have a tattoo on my arm that says God has a plan. So faith is a big, big part of it. Without faith, I wouldn't be where I am today for sure.
Yeah. I really love that. And one of the things I think we're seeing a renewal of people coming back to their foundations and having values and, really relying on God. I mean, sometimes I think about when I was a police officer on the street and I'm like, it was only through the grace of God that I got through certain things. And I think everyone has had some of those experiences, their God moment to know that, we are walking in partnership and having some of those things happen. Have you had, I mean, what led to the tattoo? Was there a specific thing or experience that you had where like, you were like, God, do you got this? Or I rely on you, or, what happened?
Yeah, so there was just a numerous amount of unfortunate events that were happening in my life. My life was literally spiraling out of control. And it got to a point in my life where I really had no idea what my future even looked like. And at that point, that's when I got this tattoo and I wanted to look at it every day because every time somebody was like, "How are you even getting up in the morning? Like, how are you making it through this?" And I was like, God has a plan. That's the only thing that kept me going was knowing that he did. And every time, that's part of looking back at that journey and connecting the dots. It could have been the last moment, but everything worked out the way it was supposed to. So even with me opening the business, like I found a building. I had no idea where it was going to be. I just found one online. I got my friend who had lost her job and I was like, "Listen, I think I found a building." She's like, "Where is it?" I'm like, "I have no idea, but I think it's up here." And, and we drove there and sure enough, that's where it was. And somewhere along the line, like everything just worked out. I was able to come up with the first and last month rent and it all fell together the way it was supposed to.
Right. I love those God moments. Now, you and I are both bank certified trainers. And, there are so many different personality tests and things that are out there. But something that is very unique about bank is that you can actually determine, how people, what they value, who they are within 90 seconds or less. I'd love for you to, share, how you got on the bank path and how that has changed your life.
So I actually, through network marketing, through that company, I went to a conference and that's where I met Sherry Tree and I saw her speak and she blew me away. My mind was just racing. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I could think of every conversation that went wrong and went right, right? And then I got the cards, I got the book, and then I didn't know there was any more. And when COVID happened, I was at like wit's end at my job. I really didn't want to be there anymore. And the direct sales was going to get me out. That was my plan, right? So I'm trying to network and do things to grow the network marketing business. And I met someone who was a bank coach and trainer. And I went through the program, and I went through to help my businesses. Little did I know that it was going to completely change everything in my life. It saved the relationship of me and my oldest child. It exponentially changed my business so much so that I was able to sell it 3 weeks ago. Yay. So,
Congratulations.
yes. But, for 18 years, I did it wrong with my own child. I am not proud of that. I thought I knew everything about them. I couldn't figure out why we couldn't get along. I couldn't figure out where the conflicts kept coming from until I went through this program. And then all of a sudden it opened my eyes to a completely different world. I mean, I was just in the one blueprint phase, right? The module. And I was like, oh wow, this explains everything.
Right. Right. Yeah, the perspective is so interesting because, we all know, like, you can have kids all grow up in the same home and you think, well, we teach them the same things, this is how things are in our family. And then, the personalities start coming out and they all operate in a different way. And when you have a really, deep understanding of what and how different each person is and how they operate in the world, and when you can learn that quickly and speak their language, right? It's literally like, sometimes talking to our kids is like speaking another language to them. And when you understand their language, that just opens up a whole new way of being, which is just beautiful.
Well, absolutely. And and the way I showed up was that fun mom, right? If we went to the toy store, I was only riding around on a little bike, shooting hoops, pushing all the buttons. And one of my kids loved it. The other one would be in tears. And I would be like, what kid doesn't want to have fun at the toy store? Well, my kid didn't, because it was too risky and they were afraid they were going to get in trouble and there was no plan. So all of a sudden, all of these things made sense. And it would have saved me so much frustration, aggravation, so much. My child would have lived a much more wonderful life, because I really didn't understand what they needed to function happily in that environment.
Right, right. Well, you've got a great tool when you're able to see that it supports you in all areas of your life, that it's not just your business, but, the foundations of your personal relationships. Because a lot of times if those are out of whack, how you show up in the world, makes a really big difference as well. And, we actually use the bank code tool as well with not only just law enforcement, because that's our background, but in corporations, in terms of improving their communication. I mean, if anything we've seen, particularly again over the last couple of years, is this lack of communication, of people not being able to hear each other. And tools like this really allow that to happen, to really open up to hear the way people talk, and to be open to their interpretations, to be able to really have, when you to have a conversation and somebody says, I get you, right? That is just everything. That really makes such a big difference. What have you noticed, in just in working with people, and when you know what their bank code is and you have those conversations with them, what's something that you notice that is different in those kind of conversations?
Oh, well, I mean, I'm a better listener. I understand where they're coming from, why they're showing up that way. When they would show up in my opposite code, I thought they didn't like me,
Mm.
because they didn't have that warm, fuzzy, bubbly energy, right? It had nothing to do with that. I blew a deal in my business that was about $250,000 in a matter of minutes, not knowing bank. And once I went through and I learned the system and the tools, I was like, oh my gosh, I know exactly what happened. And I called the person back in and I was able to close the deal.
Mm.
And it's all being able to truly take your lens off and say, okay, wait, it doesn't matter what I need or what I understand. It's not up to them to figure me out. I have to explain it in their language so that they understand what I'm saying.
Right. And this is not like a glitchy, sales tool or manipulative type thing. This is really about having authentic conversation, to really speak to someone in in ways that they can hear, and you actually get to move forward in conversation, right? So that you're not, one person speaking English and the other person speaking Spanish, and you got another person speaking French. It's like, how is it that these people can get, what restaurant are we going to? Because we can't even hear what's going on. And so when we look at it that base level, and particularly now in these times, to really be more compassionate and be open to where people are coming from, and to not just automatically make decisions that it's about us, because almost every time it's not about us at all, right? These things that we interpret like, oh, they don't like me, or they believe wacky things, or whatever those things are. It's like, if you take a moment to go, where are they coming from, and starting to ask deeper questions, then it's a whole different world, a whole different way of having conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of my friends who's also a coach and trainer, one of the things that stuck out when she said it was, it's like you're on the beach and you're standing shoulder to shoulder and in looking at something from that other person's perspective. If they say, I see a dolphin, instead of saying, what dolphin? I didn't see it. You say, tell me what you see.
Mm, yes. Great. Such a good example of that. One of the things too that we kind of look at is, when you're connecting with people and just living life in general, really, there's a lot of fear that we've noticed in the couple years that have happened. There are those that are, walking through and they're just like, I got this, no problem. And there are those who are afraid still to this day to come out of their home. And so fear can be very paralyzing for people in a lot of different ways. What are some of the ways that you talk to people about fear? How do you move through fear?
The greatest things are on the outside of fear, right? So you can't let fear stop you from living your life. It holds so many people back. And like, yes, the way things are, there's so many people who are terrified to leave their house. Like, I've been doing the same things this whole entire time
Yeah, me
because
too.
I'm going to live my life. I could do all the things, right? But what is that? What's that going to do? If it's my time to go, it's my time to go. And I'm just going to live my life and be me, and make this world a better place, right? I'm not going to
Right.
judge anybody for what they decide to do.
Mhm.
That's their decision. And I understand that people get scared, and when they get scared, they react differently than they would under normal situations.
Right.
But
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because, in just the word courage, it's like courage isn't the absence of fear, right? It's like you can have fear, but you do it anyway, right? So it's like in spite of the fear. Again, that's something I had to learn on the police department, was if I was in fearful situations, I couldn't go like, sorry, I can't take that 911 call. I need you to figure it out, right? I had to step into that. And we all, in whatever area it is that we are called to do, we have to step into that in order to make the impacts that we are here to make, and to be able to actually look at that. And I think that we have such a great opportunity now for people to have conversations, using things like bank code, so that people feel heard and they can actually speak from their heart. But to ask deeper questions, to be, what specifically are you afraid of? And if you were not afraid, what would you do differently? And how could you go around this big fear bubble to live life, right? Because we're not guaranteed, what that's going to be. We talked about, God's plan, and we don't know what that is. So we don't want to waste any of that time. And so we want to be able to look at fear and still make decisions and still live our life and do those things. And if people don't know how to do that, that's great opportunities where they can have, consultants, coaches, their minister, whoever it is that they can speak their heart to really stand in that and make a difference.
right, and that's one of the things I love about bank too, is because when people are stressed out, you can see where they are.
Yeah.
And if you're
Yeah.
able to meet them where they are, you can bring them out of that fear and get them to push past whatever's holding them back.
Right. I think one of my favorite aspects of the bank training was knowing what part of your personality steps up during stress. And so if we just know that about ourselves and know that about each other, I mean, that's something that had come up with me and my husband, because we have different ways to react to stress, and one of us will accelerate through something and the other one would be like, whoa, 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 which is completely different to how we operate on a day-to-day basis. So knowing how yourself and the people around you react during stress, that is part of some planning that you can do to know, oh, okay, if they're acting in this way, it's not because they've lost their mind. It's
Right.
because they've had an experience that has triggered them, that they've had some stress. And then it gives you an opportunity to walk through that, talk through that, and have that happen. So, it's so beautiful to be able to have these kind of tools.
Absolutely. And it avoids that conflict. How many times do people come home from work or come home, they had a bad day and they're a completely different person? And all of a sudden it starts this conflict in the house and people are like, what is going on? Where if you know how that person shows up under stress, all of a sudden you can be like, I get it. They had a bad day. Either
Yeah.
they need to be left alone or I need to give them a big hug. Like, but you know what you need to do in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And we get to create these things. In fact, one of the fun things I always like to ask my guests is that we have different life experiences in our bedroom versus our office or our kitchen. And so what is your favorite room in your home and why?
It's my kitchen. Yeah. I just got to be the kitchen. I don't know. I like to cook, and when my boyfriend comes into town, he will cook together. My son loves to cook, so it's kind of like that happy place where everybody can just come together and for whatever reason, people end up hanging out in the kitchen all the time.
Right. I have a friend of mine that says life happens between the kitchen and the bathroom.
Yeah, exactly.
So where people gather together and get to have those times together. And I think it's so important to be able to connect and, where we spend our time, whether it's to rejuvenate ourselves or to get to know the people in our lives. I mean, building those kind of relationships are so important, and the spaces that we create to do that and to bring people together are just fun and great to have.
Definitely.
So good. So what's new and on the horizon for you in this year?
I am just coaching, training, having fun, changing people's lives, bringing coaches in. I just doing all the things to really empower people around the world.
So good. And as you know, our theme for this season is freedom fighters, the different ways that we are creating freedom in our life and for other people's. So in what way are you being a freedom fighter today?
I am helping people to find their voice, be seen, heard, empowered, and be able to go out and live their best life, have their freedom to enjoy everything around them and the people around them at a completely different level.
So good. Well, I know people are going to want to stay in contact with you. And how can they do that best?
They can social media or email. I can give you the email or drop it somewhere. I don't
Yeah,
know.
we'll put it all in the links. I just didn't know if there was a favored place that you like people
um,
to follow you or connect with you.
I'm everywhere on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook.
Perfect. So good. So are there any like parting thoughts or anything in particular that you'd like to leave our audience with?
I would love to say just, stop judging and start loving people more. Life is too short. Just go out there and live your best life.
Sounds good. Well, to our listeners who are out there, until we connect again, live your spa life. Bye for now.